Hello, viewers. Welcome once again with Sports Banter with Jesse, football banter, basically. It's Saturday, 31st of May, 2025, and we're here once again, to connect to see what's going on. We're in the off season. The leagues having won the League Cup, the conference, Europa Conference Cup has been played. Chelsea won that. Um, was not expecting them to win. I thought um, that category was created for clubs who are in the lower echelons, not clubs that have spent 1.5 billion pounds. But it is what it is. You take what you're given. Chelsea won that. The Europa League has also been concluded. So Tottenham, won that. Over in Germany, Bayern, they've won the league as usual. So yeah, we're now in the season where today, what the uh, icing on the cake, Champions League final between Inter and PSG is going to also be played. So may the best team win. Although my preference would be Inter, because they played amazing football. They're not, some of these big money spenders. They've got fantastic players. Filippo Inzaghi has been a good coach, and he's put all of these things together. That's in contrast with uh, PSG. They've been mighty spenders. They've always spent good money. So it's only in the last season that the coach got his way. So they stopped copying the Galactico strategy of Real Madrid, and now they're allowing the star players they've got to come into their own and to be their own men, and so that is what got them to the finals, so it will be an interesting match. That's at 8 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Nigerian time. If you live in Kenya, I think you guys are 2 hours, ahead of us, or 1 hour ahead of us. So whatever it is, this evening, the Champions League will play, and after that is international football. It's international football, and currently, the Unity Cup is being played in London. I think it's got two Caribbean teams and two African teams. So the two African teams are Nigeria and Ghana, and the two Caribbean teams are Trinidad and Tobago and then Jamaica. Uh, Jamaica beat Trinidad and Tobago 3-2, and then Nigeria beat Ghana 2-1. We have the better jollof anyway. And so tomorrow, um, we're gonna get the finals. It's gonna be between Nigeria and Jamaica. So yeah, it's been tagged, rice and peas versus jollof rice match. So I do hope that jollof rice wins. You know how good jollof is for us, but it's Unity Cup. We're all brothers. It's games. We just want to have a good time. And if you have not seen how it's going on, head over to our website, head over to our YouTube channel. We've got, my colleague, Dr. Wale Opotola, has been on ground covering everything, and it's been fantastic. We've a lot of people from different parts of the world, especially from the Caribbean. They're watching us. They're coming to our channel, and doing these things. So um, that's it. So what is left for us to do is to uh, look at evaluate what has gone on in the last season, and what are the reasons why some clubs performed better than the others. Why did some people get relegated, something like that. So we have to reflect, and see where things have gone. So is on that basis, that's how I'm going to introduce what we will do today. So my colleague Kenny Fagwade has also he's been working on it for the last 3 months. So he's been tracking the African uh, Champions League, and he's been tracking all the teams and what makes them tick. So especially teams that are down in what is described as sub-Saharan Africa. I don't like that term, but you know, anywhere that excludes North Africa, that was both West Africa, East Africa, South Africa. It's been tracking those teams because some of the things that we've lacked is proper organization, and he's decided to look at what are the teams, that are doing well, and what can we learn from them. And this year, Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa, they've come up against the perennial leaders, the usual suspects. They're not coming from Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and they're well resourced, And then sometimes you do get some of these pure talented teams from sub-Saharan Africa along the West African coast. Back in the days, we used to have Kotoko of Ghana. We used to have Abiola Babes of Nigeria, Leventis United, Enugu Rangers, and then you will have Mazembe, TP Mazembe, and then you have there's this team from Lusaka. I can't remember, the team now, but the South African teams have since 1992 when they gained the independence and they were allowed back into the Committee of Nations. They've been pulling their weight as well. So the African Champions League that define us tomorrow. I'm going to be doing a session on that article, on that work that Kenny has done, for us, my colleague. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to join me in the studio because he's got other commitments. And Dr. Wale Opatola is also supposed to join me, but he's also covering, all of the events going on at the Unity Cup. So yeah, I will be, with you in the studio tomorrow, and we can discuss that. So that what I'm discussing tomorrow is kind of linked to what I will be discussing today. Um, at the beginning of the season, no one expected. In fact, there are 30 pundits, 3-0, and they were expected to give, their opinion on who will win, which club is going to win, like some sort of prediction, and none of them actually, mentioned Liverpool is going to win. So all they looked at was the spend. They looked at the coaching capacity. They looked at the previous performance, and they based their decisions off of that. But we do understand that more sports, we really want to go behind the scenes to understand what actually makes things work. What are the structures? Because success does not just happen, out of nowhere. You need structures in place. What are the things that have been done? So I will be talking about Liverpool because Liverpool was on the brink. I've gone through, I've done some research about the 5 phases that actually got Liverpool to where we are today. And for those who are surprised, Liverpool is actually spending, they've made a bid of about 130 million euros total package to Leverkusen just to sign Florian Wirtz. Sorry, that's the Wirtz is the name, Florian Wirtz. And a lot of people have been shocked. Oh, Liverpool does not spend more than 35 million pounds on a player. Okay, once in a while, like in the case of Van Dijk, they can pull out 75 million. In the case of Allison Becker, they can pull out 60 million. So, but once in a while they do spend, big money, but usually they don't do it on a regular basis. So that is what I want to have a look at and then see where we go with that. So yeah, I want to look at that. What is it that Liverpool has done right, and how does that, help us to see when we put it side by side and do some sort of comparison to the African teams? What do they need to do, you know, to common stream. So that's what we will be discussing today. Let's go for a break. So if you let's start from the beginning. If you understand where Liverpool were, you know, in the league, there's this Americans, Gillette and Eek. I think it's Gillette and Eeks. They bought Liverpool, and they were just busy taking the money. They bought Liverpool, got in. I think that was the era in which we had Roy Oxen as one of the guys, one of the coaches. Is low of the low when we go to Fulham. To get a coach that we don't know if he has the pedigree to actually run European, powerhouses like Liverpool. So they bought it for cheap, and then instead of investing in the club, what we saw that they started doing is to take money out of the club, but they saw it as investment, you know, and it was a tough time for Liverpool. So we expected Liverpool was in the doldrums. So Liverpool will be in the seventh position, eighth position, sometimes 10th position, and it was the era that solidify. Um, the misfortune of Steven Gerrard, Captain Fantastic. He won no league, with he didn't win any EPL, no, league championship with Liverpool. So, but before I do go into Liverpool, let's don't let me make this about Liverpool. Let me just give um, a top line, um, a top line explanation or comparison of the teams that are in and around the top, position. So we will look at Arsenal, Man City, and Chelsea. Right. So let's take Chelsea for instance. Chelsea, it took them quite a long time to come back into the game, right? So they had for 50 years they did not win, much. They didn't win the league actually until they got Abramovich came in. He employed Mourinho as the coach, and he was kind of like Anson. Abramovich was really, really, really Anson. So all he wanted to do was, okay, I want to win titles. Here is the money. Here is the coach. I want it now. So the DNA of Chelsea since Abramovich came in was I want to win things. So you won't see typically that Chelsea have the patience to brood to raise young players. No, they go for the established, players. If you remember the famous Mourinho statement that he said when he wanted to sign Drogba, and he said, "This is a player, Mr. Mourinho." Mr. Mourinho said, "Okay, what's your opinion on this? Give me a minute. Let me just set up my resource. Yeah, please. Thank you." So uh, Mourinho said, "You don't need to know anything, no technical details. Just put down the money, pay for Drogba. I'll do the rest." And we saw in the era of Mourinho, they kept winning titles after titles. And Mr. Abramovich was a no-nonsense owner. If you're not delivering titles, you are out of the door. And because of that, coaches don't have time to experiment to do anything, and they got funding to get who they need to buy. So that is the DNA of Chelsea, and that has been helped by the ownership, which is Abramovich. So the political thing that happened in 2020, Abramovich had to go, and in came in this consortium that's headed by the new guy, and only God knows what they're doing. They just kept signing players and putting them on long contracts, 7 years, 9 years. But this time around was a small shift, not in the amount that they spent. They actually outspending Abramovich in terms of investment, financial direct financial injection into the team. But they started to buy young players. They let the experienced player go, and that has been the problem that Chelsea have got currently. So it's just in the short time, and they've been changing coaches. So they want to also change coaches like Abramovich. They are impatient for results. But when you keep buying young players, there's nothing that you really want to do to speed up the process. They've won the cup now. That is Europa Conference League Cup, and that should actually push them on. I think they've gained a bit of experience now. So if they want to sign players now, they actually need to sign experienced players that can guide, the kids, into winning things. So that is the structure that Chelsea have, and that has worked out well because they've got an ownership, a billionaire that is private and is demanding, and they want results. But right now, they don't have that because they have been signing kids and they've been trying to stabilize and they're not. So that is the DNA of Chelsea. So I do believe that if they sign some experienced players in, like if you look at the old Chelsea, you have Drogba was an experienced player, Lampard was an experienced player, and you have the defender. I've forgotten his name now. You have even Maluda, all of this. So they are quite experienced players. In fact, they are captains of national teams within their squad at some point in time. So it's full of experience. It's full of people talent. Full of people who, even if they don't have a coach, they would be able to perform. So that's what I'm saying. So that is Chelsea. Now you take Man City. Man City, they are the sheikh clubs, and they got Arab money to spend. So it's like they've got private ownership as well, and individual ownership, and that kind of like is how they want to play. So since they've got that, it's just been money, money, money. So essentially, they've been buying the leagues, that they've won. They are able to outspend everybody. They're able to buy the best players in the world, and even when they don't need the player, right? They take the player out of the market so that the rival team is not able to buy the player. So that's how they compete, and they've not been following, the financial play rules. So there's the financial, fair play, rules. It's in existence so that teams do not are not able to buy the league, but somehow they have got away with it. So they've been slammed with this 115, charges. We're expecting the resolution of that. So we'll see what happens. In a bit, maybe in the next 2 months. That will be before we start the new season. Anyway, they have to. But you know, I don't have any hope that justice is going to be done. They're not going to remove all the cops from them. They're not going to revoke their titles. So what you likely get is what you're going to likely get is how do I call it, fines, and then some of the clubs will want to sue, the relegated clubs and the clubs that should have won. They will probably be able to sue, but I think in the package they will kind of like make money available to settle those clubs. So, but if you look at the structure behind the club, it is we've got this money that is coming from the Middle East. We've got oil money. We've got the sheiks, and we want to buy the best players. We want to go out and spend as much as we can to get what we want. So, if you look at in the January window, they just went out. Pep Guardiola was having a bad time in the league, and he just decided I'm going to spend 200 million, and he spent 200 million. He brought in Mamouche, he brought in Savio, and he brought in another guy, and that's it. So that is the money that the average Italian club will probably spend in 10 years or 5 years, 200 million that somebody just spent in the winter window, if you know what I mean. So that is Man City for you. That is Man City. Buy the league. We don't care at what cost. We don't care about the rules. We're just going to buy it. So unfortunately, Pep Guardiola, with all his talent, has been part of that structure. And in-house, when we discuss it, Kenny is a great admirer of Pep Guardiola's style of football, and I am not. And I do acknowledge that he's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant coach. But if you look at his track record, if he hasn't got a specific type of player to interpret his idea on the field, it's going to fall flat on his face. He's not going to be able to compete. So that is who Pep Guardiola is a fantastic guy. He thinks the game is from the La Masia, Johan Cruyff, school of football. We understand that. And when he won everything in Barca, all of his stars aligned. Everything worked out well for him. So if you've got Messi, if you got Busquets, if you got Xavi, you've got, why else are you going to teach? They know they've been playing this since Tiki Taka, since they're in La Masia, since they're in the youth ranks. In fact, when they have Barcelona B, they were playing there. So when they graduated, in fact, Guardiola was their coach in Barcelona B. So when they graduated to the senior team, it's just okay, carry on. And if you've got the best player in the world in the shape of Messi, what else do you want? And he's surrounded by a cast that are equally fantastic. So he went over to Bayern. Okay, um, Vincent Company has gone over to Bayern. He started winning as well. You can take any average coach into the German league, and they're going to buy everything because Bayern actually spends all the money. Bayern is like a Uber. So any good talent that is coming out of Germany goes straight to them, and that's what they do. So if you are a coach in Bayern Munich, all you are expected to do is win on the continent. That means you must win the Champions League, and Pep Guardiola was not able to do that. So it wasn't until it came to Man City. Man City was already a billionaires club. They have a squad that was a billion. He spent much more money, to get what he wanted, the kind of players that he wanted. So that is who Pep and Man City are. So if you take Pep out of Man City today, who are you going to put on his seat that will play regular football? So that is where the danger is. And I think it was not Arrigo Sacchi. It was the other coach that said Mourinho has actually messed up football because every coach is trying to play tiki-taka like him, but they don't have the tools. And football, if you look at what the new set of coaches have been doing now, if you look at Filippo Inzaghi, if you look at Arne Slot, if you look at Luis Enrique, Xabi Alonso, they're not playing tiki-taka. So football has moved in terms of philosophy, that guides that. So Mourinho, Pep Guardiola is finding that very, very difficult. And if you heard the interview that Mourinho gave, and he said about when he left, he wasn't picked as the Barcelona manager. He was expecting to be Barcelona manager, and he was handed to Pep. And he said, I decided. So when he went to Inter, he said he decided to be the opposite of everything that Barcelona represents. So if you look at the Inter team, he brought in Eto'o. He took Eto'o away from Barcelona, brought him to Eto'o. He brought all these kind of French players, and they're doing really, really well. They won everything in sight. So they actually, stopped Barcelona in the semifinals, got to the finals, won what they had to win. So this is the sort of things that we're saying. So that is Man City, the billionaire club, buy the league, buy the best players. It's like shopping Arrows instead of shopping in Tesco or shopping in Lidl or Aldi. You know, it's like instead of going to the street market, they go up market. That is how they get their football and footballers. So that is the structure that they operate in there. So what is happening now is Pep Guardiola is finding out outgoing. He's probably going to spend another 200 million or 300 million in the summer. Who cares? But what has happened was, if you see what is happening in the field as well, Florian Wirtz has been described as a generational talent. And usually, Barcelona got all the generational talents in the Bundesliga before they are allowed to go anywhere else. So, if you look at the case of Michael Ballack would have gone to Europe. I think he would have gone either. I think it was Manchester United and Chelsea were kind of like wanting to sign him, but uh, Bayern Munich said no. You have to wait. We will sign you next year. They signed him. He played for them, won things with them, went to the World Cup before he was allowed to go to Chelsea. And look at what he did in Chelsea. So um, Florian Wirtz was also approached by Bayern and said, no, I'm not going to. And he cited two reasons, which is part of what we're going to discuss in the second half. And he said, your training facility is 30 years old. And I don't like the idea that Vincent Company has presented to me about how you're going to improve me. So he didn't sign for them. They didn't believe it. Then he came to Man City. He told them upfront, I'm not interested in signing for you. I want to sign for Liverpool. And so that was a slap on the face of Pep Guardiola, because most of these players, once they heard the name Pep Guardiola, oh, I want to play for him. The pay is good, and then we're going to win things. But suddenly it's no longer like that. So that is the structure there, so that we don't overflog it. Now the third is Arsenal. I would have been speaking about Arsenal when we talk about structure, because they add the structure. So wind back to when Arsene Wenger, came into the club. I think it was 92 or so. Wind back, this Arsene Wenger actually changed everything. He went to the dressing room. He told these guys who would sweet beers and smoke a fag. So he changed, the nutrition. He brought in sports science. He brought in a different way of training. He brought in a different way of buying, players. He was the first true Moneyball football coach. They will buy young players. He has this network of scouts. They will buy exciting young players, and then he will play them. He will plot, new talent. And he had a football director, David Dane. David Dane understood what he was trying to do, and David Dane understood that for us to fight Manchester United, we need to have a structure. We may not have as much money as they do, but we need someone who's got a structure, someone who's going to bring in the talent, manage the talent, and then move on. And that was successful. The most successful era of Arsenal Football Club was that era. But as you know, is a he read economics, in school. That is Arsene Wenger, and he knew that not only do I have to coach, I also have to look at the business side of the club, and then they have to move from Highbury to Emirates. So I actually used to go to Highbury back in the days, because I think Highbury is N9, and I lived in N16, and you could see what they've done there. So when they moved over to the Emirates, oh my God, I think it was the best in London before Tottenham decided to build that behemoth. If you've not been to the Tottenham Stadium, please, when you have the time, when you're in London, go there and see what those guys have done there. So that was the kind of structure that they had, and it was really, 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 really beautiful. So that was where we were, and suddenly David Dane left, and these billionaires came in, Kronka, and then there's this billionaire from is it Belarusia or somewhere? Yeah, I, I can't remember his name now. So suddenly we have billionaires who are taking money out of the system. They saw it as a business and they want dividends and all of that. At some point, even I think still now, the season ticket for Arsenal is the most expensive in the Premier League. Is the most expensive. So they kept overing money out of the club. And then after Arsene Wenger left, because they were not investing like they should do in football. When Arsene Wenger left, in order to maintain control, they did not get a director of football. And then they got, different coaches until Arteta came in. So they wouldn't even give them time. The current Aston Villa coach was hired. They did not give him time. This guy could not settle down to work because the contracts of some of the players and some of the players that he needed to bring in, they are not giving him money to invest properly. So you could say that the structure started, to go downhill from there. And then suddenly they brought in Arteta. And in fairness to Arteta, Arteta was from the school. Maresca, who is in Chelsea, and Arteta are from the school. They are former disciples of Pep Guardiola. And if you look, he wanted to play the game like Pep did. We just pass and pass and pass teams to their death. But didn't work. It worked for a while, and in fairness, they were number two, number two, number two. The in those seasons that Liverpool were kind of like going down from their eyes, they got in. So in the last three seasons now, they've been second in the league. But you find out that there's the issue of reinvestment. And when they're going to make that investment, they don't get the right kind of players because the footballing philosophy of the coach is different from that of the establishment. So even right now, the window is open and there's already been a rift between Banter, who is the new director of football, and Arteta, who is now been is the coach, is a manager. So there's a difference between the head coach. Arteta was brought in as a head coach. That means they give you players and then you make them, play. You coach them to play. But if you're a manager, you have a good say in what actually happens with any players that you're bringing in to fit your philosophy, much like Klopp had, much like Arsene Wenger had, much like Fergie had, all of these, much like Pep Guardiola has. So they gave him the opportunity, and if you looked in the last season, who did he sign? He signed Gabriel Jesus, who is injury prone, and then when he knew that Kai Havertz was not an out-and-out striker, and it was in that season that even his mentor Pep Guardiola decided, okay, I'm going to need a nine because I have not played. Since the Argentinian left, he didn't have a nine, so he had to sign a number nine. But Arteta believed, he could pass his way around. And everybody knew that if he had a striker, he would have won at least one EPL Cup. Didn't. Last season, he went for Sterling from Chelsea on loan. And Sterling is already on 297, I think £300,000 a week. And you're paying that, salary. And he's sitting down on the bench. You don't trust him. And he kept chopping and changing, playing Partey as a fullback, right fullback. And, he's a number six. He's an enforcer. And all of this cost them the league anyway, cost them, to league. So you cannot say that Arsenal, they've got some kind of structure in there. but the structure is not optimized for success because it's really, really difficult to come from the ground and reach the top and not take the prize. I do believe that Arsenal are going to look back and said the last 3 seasons we should have won something, big. So when they played PSG, they were on the back foot. They were expecting Rice. Rice could go forward. And one of the things is the tactical awareness and the tactical brilliance of Arteta. For me as a person, is not that brilliant because you knew you were playing these guys and you do not vary your approach to the game. So if you saw what PSG did with Liverpool, they came on the front foot. They were on the front foot, both legs, and it worked out for them. Penalties, black. When they played Arsenal, they kind of like sat back a little bit to soak the pressure and eat them on the counter. So that is when a coach is actually, playing it game by game. But Arteta, you knew what he was going to do. You knew they were going to pass from the keeper, pass it round, pass it there, pass it this, and then they pass themselves to the death. And then when you expect the winger to run in, just keep a guy on him, mark them out. Odegaard came from injury; he could not shoot like he used to. Uh, Saka is going to cut to the left, so make sure that he's always pushing to the right, and that's it. You nullify the threat of Arsenal. So he's got one more season to see what it does. But in terms of the structure of the club, it is fairly sound, but not that sound. You could say it's Championship League structure. So this is why I've chosen Liverpool. I've just given you a lot of this background so that when we check out what Liverpool is doing, right, we can also now check out what Mamelodi Sundown have been doing, um, I've been doing since. So let's take a little break. Let me gather my breath and then come back for the second part. Oh, okay. You're welcome back. So now let's have a look at Liverpool Football Club. So there are 5 stages, 5 phases, that were in the FSG master plan. And this is why, as fans, we need to understand, we need to evaluate the owners and evaluate what they're doing at any point in time and try to understand where they're headed. So if you understand the philosophy of a club, like if you're Chelsea and you're expecting that your club are going to produce world beaters from the feeder teams, you're joking. You have to go to Brighton for that kind of. You have to go to Bournemouth. You have to go to a club like Leverkusen, right? All of these big clubs, what they do is they go there and buy established stars, and that's what they do. So that's Chelsea for you. So as a Chelsea fan, you have to think along that line. My club, unless a new owner comes in and say, okay, we want to do things differently. So if you're Man City with all their plastic and emergency funds, um, I've seen quite a lot of Arsenal fans who, when they were not winning anything, they would quickly ran over to become, Man City fans. Anyway, they're all coming back up now. So you need to understand some of these structures so that is what produces football. There's the cultural aspect, which is something that we can, discuss. And there are two different. When I say cultural, there are two different broad, terms about that. One is the culture of the city or the country that houses that football club, and one is the organizational ideas and ways that the organization itself see themselves and has progressed over a period of time. So this is what I meant by culture. You think in that too, sense. So let's, don't let me bore you. Let's go into FG master plan. So the phase one was they bought the club cheap, 300 million. The club was going to go into administration anyway. Ix and Gillette were not meeting their debt obligations, and they needed, to steady the ship. That's what they did. They pay off the debts, that Liverpool was owing, and then they were in a position to move, the club forward. Now the phase two that Liverpool had was okay. Let's look at this brand. What are we going to do about it? We are going to invest in the things that actually produces the stars. So they looked at the feeder team, they reorganized it. So um, the first thing that club did was to reorganize, the feeder teams. Before, the under nines, under the age group, clubs, age group teams, they were playing different styles under different coaches. So it is to institute one philosophy across, since from when you are like Trent Alexander Arnold came into the club at 9 years of age, and progressed through the teams, and now he's in Real Madrid. So what they did was they created this world class facility. It's called the Access Center, just to attract players, to say to the players who are there, look, you're going to train in the best facility ever. You're not going to have the excuse that lack of facility or lack of infrastructure is a reason why you are not performing at your optimal level. So we're going to give you that. So if you remember what Klopp said, he said, I'm not looking for people who are going to sit in first class. I'm looking for people who are going to push the train with me. So he's looking for workers. So if you looked at, and that time that we spent 50 million pounds, 50 million, imagine 50 million pounds in 2016 to build this world class facility. And they made a whole lot of bell and whistle noise about this facility. So if you looked in any Liverpool promotional material on the blogs, you see the sites. It's more of a lifestyle, facility. You see people go to the gym and play. They've got the rejuvenation area. They've got where they can sit and have tea. They can play all that kind of sports. It's a lot. Once you come in, you go to the kitchen. You have all the chefs, and all of that. So it is a fantastic thing. And Florian Wirtz came there when Liverpool played um, Leverkusen, and he was in there with Frimpong, and they looked at the facility and said, I would like to play here. They actually allowed them to train there. So when good teams come around, they allow them to train in that facility just to give the players, it's like a PR thing. Look how who we are, look how what we spend our money. You could be playing here. Do you know what I mean? If we decide we like you could be playing here. So that was the phase, two. It's designed to train and attract other players. So I think is fulfilled this function now because Florian Wirtz actually told Bayern that look, your facility is 30 years old. I'm a young guy. I'm Gen Z. I want, TikTok type environment. That's where I'm going. Now, phase three was okay, we're going to bulk up the base for getting money and getting more people into the stadium. So that was what Everton, they used to be across, in Stanley Park. No, no, Stanley Park is a new place. I'm mixing things up. Anyway, they also have a new stadium. And part of having a new stadium is to have a new identity, have a modern identity, have more ways of making money because you can get in season ticket holder. So Liverpool extended the Anfield. The Anfield expansion actually brought in about 25,000 extras, spaces for people to stand. And if you understood that season ticket it's like £1,000, no minimum of 1,200, £1,500 in that range. That's a lot of money. Take 1,200, 1,300, £1,500, multiply it by 25,000 places. There's some of it that graduated, but it's still a huge amount of money that's going to allow you, to actually, make money that you can spend on the team. So that cost FSG about 190 million pound, to do that development. So they increased the revenue. Yeah, in that case, they were. If you looked at what Klopp was doing, Klopp was actually only spent. It was buying. We bought Fabinho for 30,000, 30 million, 32 million from France. We bought a couple of players. James Milner came on a free. Um, so that's why they call Liverpool the 35 million pound player club, because that's around the region in which we spend money. And if you look at Robert Robertson, was bought from Hull City, who went into relegation for £7 million, and Trent Alexander cost us nothing. Right. In fact, people who are berating Trent Alexander, actually, Trent Alexander was on 50K a week, kind of, until to 2018, 2019 season. That was when he got about 120, and the last one he got was about 160,000 a week, right? So that was phase three. You expand the stadium, you increased your revenue, streams, and also, marketing. We're getting money from marketing. You're getting money from being in the Champions League. You're getting money from TV money that's coming through, and all of this is adding up. So you are putting yourself in a robust position to actually, when you decide to do things, then you get it done. So the next step was not even to target all of this. And so they went for best in class stuff. So when they had a clean break, uh, and they said, now we're going to get the best guy. So if you look at Liverpool Football Club under FSG, we've been a predatory and opportunistic um, operator in the transfer market. Klopp took a decided, time off from Germany, Dortmund, and he said, "I want to go. I want to do something. I want to go and rest." Then Liverpool just went in for this guy. Name your cost. We're gonna get you. We want a character like you, and that was what we got. And from that time, they signed Edwards. They called the transfer committee was ridiculous at first. Edwards was in, and then with another guy, he left. That guy left now, but Edwards come back. If you look at the kind of people we signed, look at Richard Hughes that we signed from Bournemouth. If you look at the trajectory of Bournemouth and the kind of players they've signed over the years, you're going to know that this guy knows what he's doing. They buy for cheap. They're the proper Moneyball, club as well. So if you look at the guy who went over to Real Madrid, the defender, it was bought for 12 million and sold for 50 million. So if you want to buy players from, like look at Kakes was bought for around 11 million, and Liverpool has been quoted a figure of 45 million pound. So if you get this type of thing, now when they went for slot, they went all in for slot. They matched him. So everything is done by careful consideration, a lot of big data analysis, and all of that. So that's what they do. Best in class staff that produces. That's where to go. So when Klopp said, "Okay, I have to leave now," um, FG always look at the injury crisis that Arsenal had in this concluded season. Liverpool had it twice during the reign of Klopp. So when Slot was going to come in, they told him, "You're going to." It was one of those things that was looked at. How do you resolve the injury problem? So there's, if you go on Liverpool website, there's this interview that Alan Shearer, no, is it Alan Shearer? No, no, Alan Shearer, another journalist, a big time A plus journalist, you know, had with Slot, and it was one of the things that he actually prepared for. He prepared for that, so he brought in Peters. So there's this guy called Peters. It's Peters, but they call it in a different way in the Netherlands. And this guy, what he does is that he makes sure that it tailors, the training strategy and plans to bring about less injury. And that was what worked for Liverpool, to be honest with you. So usually, if you know Liverpool around from November to February, we're always dropping points. Injuries was a major part of that. So what we've been able to do is to lessen that, and so that kind of like work. That was the phase four, and once we saw it out, nobody was expecting us to win the league this season. When they brought that in, and it's a bonus of all of these things that have been happening since the phases. And right now, um, it's the time that FSG are actually prepared to do player investment. Last year, Liverpool only spent money on one player, Mamadashvili. Mamadashvili is the goalkeeper, Valencia goalkeeper that we bought, and this guy wanted a small, team. He wanted to make sure that he worked with that team, and that is what we have had, you know. So, um, yeah, let me see. The guys who have joined us. Toyib says, "Good job by club. Didn't know he did some groundwork in the academy in Liverpool." Look, that guy is a monster in the sense that not only does he overanalyze the opposition, he's a coach that is coming and in-game management. One of the weaknesses of Klopp was that he waits until the last minute before he makes changes. So in-game management is not as on top. But when you look at Slot, the first thing he doesn't care. He plays anyway. The evolution of the game itself within 90 minutes, he plays 4 to 5 different styles. Players have to move around. You have to play little kind of formations to confuse, the guys you're playing against. So that for me is actually really, really key in what's going on. So now that is why I've mentioned Florian Wirtz, not out of the usual euphoria of a fan or anything. No, we have to look at what is making a team work. So that, like I said to you, like tomorrow when I start to share with you the work that my colleague Kenny Faguero has done, you'll be able to link it. So a lot of these things I'm sharing with you today, you'll see it in how Mamelodi Sundown have also progressed. That's why you can see them competing at the top of African football. And we can have lessons that, other clubs can learn from it. And we also want our viewers to, maybe you can take some of these things and apply it to your personal and individual business to understand how those things, really work and what can we, get done. So now it's a shock to a lot of people that Liverpool is actually tabling an offer of over £100 million, 109 million, £110 million actually, to sign just one player who is a generational player. I'll come later, maybe next week, we can talk about how Florian Wirtz is a generational player. Just like you have Yamin Lamar, you have Messi. I think he's one of those. Now he's been named the player of the season, the Bundesliga player of the season twice, and he's only 22. So the ceiling is really high. Trust me, guys. and this kind of talent, even as a Liverpool fan of many, 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 many years, over 20 years, 25 years, I wasn't. I shared with you when I talked about it about 2 weeks ago. I said I don't think it's going to happen. If it happens, it's just one of those things. I'll be shocked if it happened. So this one, you need to understand who this guy is and how come is choosing Liverpool. And I should be upfront with you. He chose Liverpool. If Liverpool was trying to sign him, there's no way we could have. And that's why Man City quickly say, "Oh, because we don't have money." Who would believe that kind of excuse? You don't have money. You've been buying everything. So just to wrap up my point, um, I think just to let you know that since 2010, to let you know these 5 phases has been really planned out. You will see that Liverpool since 2010, yeah, the 15-year plan is starting to. They had a 15-year plan, and it's starting to show fruit now. They've spent 1.5161 billion euros. That's how much they've spent. So when people are saying, "Oh, Liverpool," they spent 1.5161 billion pounds. But here is a kicker: the assets that they've sold, the players that they've sold, is 928.8 million euros. Sorry, euros. I'm doing this in euros. You remember, Philip Coutinho was sold for 145 million euros, just him, and his money bought Alisson and Van Dijk for Liverpool. And one of the reasons why you have to understand why getting Florian Wirtz is an absolute, joy for Liverpool is because since Coutinho left, we've never truly had a natural number 10. Nobody. So the net spend for Liverpool from 2010 to 2025 is 584.4 million euros. That is a net spend. So when we're discussing this, and I tell some of our fans, didn't you buy Van Dijk for 75 million? Didn't you buy that? When you're adding this up, you need to look at the outgoings and the incomings. That's how it's measured. So that's how it is. So if you want to understand it in terms of euro, since 2012 and 2013, the top 19 net spenders. What does net spending mean? Net spending is exactly what I told you. By the time you look at how much you spent and how much you've taken back from true player sales, then you get your net spending, right? Or net spend. So the number one net spender in the whole of Europe, probably in the whole world, they are Manchester United. Manchester United have spent 1.75 billion euros. So you get that. The next is the usual suspect anyway. Manchester City. They have actually spent 984 million euros. Now, followed by Paris Saint-Germain. They've spent 941 million euros. I'm talking about net spend here. So that's the actual spend, you know. Number 4 is Barcelona, 650 million euros net spend. Actually, it would have been more than that if they have to buy Yamal Lamin. Do you understand me? How much do you think Lamin is going to cost? Easily 150 million pounds. Yeah. So let's leave that. Number 5, in the fifth position of net spend is Arsenal. Arsenal have got 583 million net spend, followed by Juventus at number 6, 561 million. That is followed by AC Milan, 432 million. Everton at number 8, 429 million. At number 9 is Aston Villa, 424 million euros net spend since 2012 to date. Chelsea coming at number 10, 413, you know, million. So with all the money they're spending, they're kind of like getting some back. But this figure is not accurate because of the financial engineering that Chelsea does. So when they hand you a 9-year contract, all of your anyway, that's a different that's the wage bill. So the wage bill is going to be different from this. So this is just player sales. So yeah, don't let me mix it up. So number 11 is Inter. Inter have 385 million, euros, followed by West Ham at number 12, 374 million euros. Number 13 is Bayern Munich at 363 million euros, and Liverpool stands at 347 million euros. So yeah, I think I should be. This information is via CIES. You can go to their site, and I think when I got it, it's not to date. I think it is should to about 2022 or 2021. Anyway, it gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. So Liverpool is at number 14 of net spenders in Europe's top 5 leagues, followed by Newcastle United at three. Newcastle is number 15 at 339 million. Tottenham is now number 16 at 336 million. Crystal Palace is 292 million at number 17. Leicester City is 275 million, and Brighton is 248 million, in those years. So what I'm saying here is, when you look at it, Liverpool have been really, really clever because they've got the structure that they've set up. Is a professional structure that is designed to produce this kind of results that we're getting. And if you understood that what they're actually doing this season is, last season they did not spend, they only bought one player. And what they're doing for Slot right now, what FSG is doing for Slot is to say, okay, you've got Klopp's team and you won a title with them without investment. Now we want to invest in you so that in the next 3 years, all we just need to do is buy one or two players. So where there's leakage, we plug it. So if Liverpool ends up spending 250 million in this window, number one, they will not be in breach of financial play, rules. Never. Two, they've brought. Look at Florian Wirtz. If you buy Florian Wirtz at £120 million and you play him for 4 years and he delivers three titles to you, 22 to 26, that is just 4 years. At 26 is in the peak of his powers. You will not sell him for much less than you bought him. Look at it that way. So they're being clever. So the kind of player they're investing in right now, it fits the right profile that they've set. In fact, if you listen to some of the interviews about the big data team at Liverpool, the guy was saying that the signing of Van Dijk, no, not Van Dijk, yeah, the signing of Van Dijk was not, we almost didn't sign him because he was not at the right age that they were signing players. So at that time, you have to be 22, 23, to sign, for them. But like I said, when you look at the coaching style and everything, if you the game pressing that Klopp played, it's been evaluated, and they said that if you spend 3 years on that club, it's equal to 5 years in other leagues, because it kind of like relies on every training and every football style. So when you look at Firmino, Sadio Mane, the Brazilian, they all kind of like after 3 years they were really, really tired, but they're doing well now back because they needed to get their rest and come back. So but we've got Slot now. Slot is like, okay, I'm not going to be that heavy, no getting pressing. I'm going to confuse the other teams with tweaks, different strategic tweaks, and then I'm going to gradate it, and then I'm going to make sure that the evolutionary process inside a single 90 minutes match is going to be unparalleled and unmatched. and that's what he does, and he can work with players. Now he's getting his own players. That's even scary. So I don't want to bore you today. My time, I've spent my time. I hope I've not bored you. Yeah, this is different from the kind of banter that we do, but it is something I hope we learn. So especially in the light of the work that my colleague Kenny Faguero did, over the space of 3 months in looking at my Melody Sundown. So at 5 o'clock tomorrow, I'll join you. It will not be as long as I promise you. But what we're saying is that if we want to be the best in Africa, we have to look at the best practices everywhere. And then in the league now, I mean, in all of the European league, there's no league as rich and as organized as the Premier League, and we're learning something from the way Liverpool has, reinvented themselves. So when we look at Mamelodi Sundown tomorrow, we will see why something is working for them, and it might also help you to understand the economy. It might help you to understand the culture. It might help you to understand what is going on behind the scenes. Why do teams, from good economies, actually go out there to become the best? So that's what we're going to look at tomorrow. And if you want to know what's going on with, okay, we're going to be doing that before the uh, the Champions League, African Champions League, kicks off at 6 o'clock. Yeah, tomorrow. So I will be done, and then you can go from there, to the game. Tomorrow also, the Super Eagles of Nigeria at the Unity Cup at GTEC Stadium in Brentford, London. They're going to be playing Jamaica for the final of that cup. I know we're going to win if we're not complacent. With Ghana, we could have scored 4 goals in the first half, but we didn't take our chances, and the Ghanaians should have equalized. And that's exactly the same problem that Eagles have always had. So lots of concentration, not taking things seriously, not following the game plan for 90 minutes and more, and that has been the pain. But for all of the coverage of the Unity Cup, we're there live and direct. Dr. Wale Opatola has been doing that. Head over to our YouTube channel. You're going to see everything there. See what's going on. See Jollof Rice Wars. See how people are turning out and enjoying themselves. Coming out and supporting their teams. It's about friendship. It's about camaraderie. It's about love. We're African teams, whether you're from the Caribbean or whatever it is, wherever black sports is, more sports going to be there. So I do hope that you enjoy the rest of the week. Catch you tomorrow, and then we're going to do it all over again. Bye.